Why Trees, presented by Jonathan Legg. Why trees? Basically, since the beginning of time, climate has fluctuated between colder and drier spells and warmer and wetter spells. In the distant past, millions of years ago, there was also a time when there was a lot of CO2 like we have now in the atmosphere. So my first question when addressing, getting the answer of why trees, was to find out what Mother Nature herself did. What did she do? She planted trees. The whole planet was covered in trees. And that is why now I think that the best thing we can do when we have all this CO2, it's getting warmer and it's getting wetter, is that we need more trees. Human civilizations have thrived and evolved when the climate has been stable, when they can count on rainfall to fall at the same time every year. With our current climate change, one of the most distinct things is the change in rainfall patterns and the change in seasons. The best way that we have to make sure, to ameliorate these changes, is to have more trees. And also, as you can see in here, it's a nice sunny day, but the ground is still a little bit damp because it hasn't dried out, and the temperature is much cooler. In the winter, for example, the temperature outside will be much colder than in the forest. So basically the forest levels out the temperatures, and it means that more water is retained in the soil, which is vital, because the thing that we're going to be worried about most with climate change is going to be that we don't have enough water, and we need that, of course, to grow our crops. Also, what a forest acts is kind of like a bounce. The rain will fall, and then the water will evaporate from the trees and then come up and create more clouds. The reason that's important is otherwise you get water, it comes from the sea, it falls on the coast, and then it just disappears. So no rain comes further inland. On land, the place that we find most life is in the forests. That's why places like the Amazon rainforest or the rainforest of the Congo or in Indonesia are the most vital places that we keep in a pristine condition, because that's where all the life is. There's so much life out there that we haven't even discovered yet. There's probably 1,000 different coloured frogs. There's probably literally millions of different insect forms, shapes, and the amount of plants, medicinal plants, food plants, ones that we can eat and enjoy, we just haven't found yet, but they're all out there. If we burn them down just to make soya and grow cattle, not only will that land be lost forever, but also the land will be destroyed. Of course, the people living near the Amazon rainforest and the Congo in Indonesia, they still need to eat, they still need places to live. So what we'll do, we're going to find systems where you can have both trees and villages and enough food for people. It's been done for thousands of years. People have lived there for as long as we know, and it's going to continue that way. The new method of slash and burn will need to stop, and we'll find the way. So a little bit like what we call forest gardening. Scientists have studied the tree species and their diversity and where they're actually located in the forest. And what they've found out is that they think that nature would not have put the trees where they are together in the way they have. So what they think has happened is that significant quantities of the Amazon forest have actually been planted by man. The specific food types and other useful plants have been put in certain areas that scientists imagine that nature would not do itself. One of the areas that still has beautiful, pristine forests are what are called sacred groves. These are found in almost every culture and are still looked after and cared for in some cultures, like in Africa, for example. In Western Europe, they were mainly known for the Druids and the Celtics and that kind of thing. But unfortunately, once they got taken over by the Romans and the Anglo-Saxons, most of them were destroyed. But here up in Scandinavia, we still have remnants of the ancient burial sites, and these were often associated with sacred groves. Or take a run in the forest, jump on your bike, or get on a horse and take a quick trot. Don't tend to run for very long though. Forest bathing. This is one of the most popular pastimes in countries, particularly Japan. And in places like South Korea, they've actually got special resorts so people can go up and have guided meditation and all other kind of practices for their healing. It's not just the beautiful, relaxing smells and sounds that we get from the forest, but scientists have also proven that there's other things that can help us as well. Trees, they naturally give off ions, which is very good to balance our energy, and certain trees give off etheric oils. So when we're breathing in, we're actually breathing in health products. What we have in the background here might look like a stand of willow. It is actually a water treatment plant. The water from our village comes through here and gets filtered and cleaned through the roots of the willow. And what do we get out of it? Well, we don't have a horrible, great big like factory or sewage plant. We have some beautiful willow, which then we can cut. You can make it into firewood. You can use it to make it into all kinds of things, wicker baskets. Yeah, the sky's the limit. You can make it into fences, all kinds of things. It's very similar to the concept that I've also spoken about in the book, which is called phytocapping. So when we have like a great big waste site, so that the gases, the methane and the carbon dioxide don't escape, instead of just having a layer of clay on top, we also put a layer of plants, particularly trees, because they're really good at holding the soil together. And that means rather than having a great big ugly rubbish tip or garbage dump, then we have a beautiful site instead. And it's one that is durable and holds together. And you can also have animals, you can have it as a park. In fact, there's no end to the amount of uses you can use it for. Much of our landscape now, where it once was trees, is all fields and with a hell of a lot of agriculture. One of the things I don't want to do is get rid of the agriculture, but to integrate the trees into the farms. One of the things we can see in the background, we can see the cattle down here. Cattle, they like eating grass, they also like eating trees. And back in the old days, before they were domesticated, they all lived in forests. So one of the things we're going to do is bring back the trees into the fields. Not only do the trees, once they're a little bit bigger than these ones, they give shelter. So when it's raining or when it's like really hot, the cows and other animals can shelter under them. They also serve to kind of, yet again, they protect the soil. They slow the speed of the rainfall when it falls, and most of them can also fix nitrogen into the ground as well. As well as that, they can also diversify the farmer's produce. So in certain years, if it's a little bit drier, for example, the crops might not be so good. But the farmer might have, a whole row of apples or pears or any other type of fruit that he can also harvest. And in countries where a lot of wood is used as firewood, then he's got a source available right next to him. So in every way possible, having more trees in the fields adds to it. If we can see the height, and this is like pretty long now, it's like a few centimeters or a few inches high. So basically the amount of life we have here is this much. If we put in a tree, and we can see these are only planted last year and they're already this high. And these trees, they're going to end up being 20 meters, 30 meters, depending on a few aspects, the climate, the amount of rainfall, that kind of thing. So that means we've expanded the amount of life that we have here from a few centimeters to meters. And you think that is a great idea, don't you, Tanya? She said, yeah. One of the best things to have in a forest is a shelter. And what's the shelter made out of? You guessed it, it's made out of wood. The fire down here with a few cigarette butts, but what are you going to burn in it? You're going to burn wood. And here we've got furniture, a nice good old pub table. Again, all made out of wood. Mankind evolved into what we are because of one thing: trees and wood. The first thing that separated us from the other creatures was being able to take wood and make fire. The first tools were made out of wood and stone. Once we moved into the metals could only be produced because we had wood that we made into charcoal that we burned so that we could melt it. Almost every single thing that we have is based on wood. Just to show how well I'm doing with this filming, I've just been given the wooden spoon. Yeah. And so they cut down all the trees. The last tree that got cut down meant that pretty much everyone died. And there's nothing they could do. It's like you're in this island in the middle of nowhere. You can't make a ship to escape because you've cut down all the trees. So you're stuck. And I see that as like an analogy of what we're doing to the planet now. Because yeah, we're stuck on this rock in the middle of space and we're cutting down all the trees. What we need to do is like take the what we learned from Darwin and Ascension Island and put the trees back on. Then we can have a... Here in the background we have a living fence. It's beechwood. As soon as the temperature turns right, the old leaves get shed, the new ones come up, and all you need to do is cut it a couple of times. Quite often in other countries where we have more variable weather conditions, here it kind of like rains, it's been raining all day and then you've got like sunshine now for the evening. You have dry season and wet seasons. A lot of the trees still have their foliage during the dry season, so the other animals like the goats and the sheep, that kind of stuff, there's no more grass for them to feed, so the farmer, he can cut some of the branches and they've got fodder, plenty of fodder to eat, and it's fresh and highly nutritious. In the background here you can see on top of the new building that we have a green roof. This one is actually succulent based, but what we're actually seeing in particularly in the cities, people like missing out on their nature. They're turning their roofs into gardens and producing foods and all kinds of things. My vision for the cities of the future is they need to be integrated into nature. It's great that we put a little bit of nature back into the cities, but if we can take the opposite view of seeing, okay, we've got a forest here, how can we integrate with that forest? How can we live in the forest sustainably? Like the way we evolved and many indigenous peoples still do. One of the best things that we can do with wood, and what we've always done with wood, is build with it. Here we can see our latest building that we added last year to Herta, and it was built in a modular form. That means it was built by one person inside during the winter, and then it was just like brought up here and put in place in a few hours. The benefits for that is you don't have a lot of driving backwards and forwards of a lot of workmen, wasting a lot of their valuable time, like an hour at a time maybe, to drive here. And also you have much less weight. So the actual foundations that's required for this type of building is much less than for, say for example, a concrete and steel structure. Yeah, we can also see that it's ultimately recyclable. It has linseed oil paint on it, so as soon as any of these beams, if you don't want it, you just take it apart and you can either like reuse them or in a worst case you can just burn them, and they burn beautifully and pretty well as well. Yeah.
Parkour.